Hello, everybody. Welcome to the BO on MMA podcast, where I am talking about, well, MMA, obviously, but particularly in this instance, I am talking about the UFC card at the O2 Arena in London, England, that is coming up on Saturday, March the 22nd in the afternoon. I will be unable to watch this one live, so if you have been enjoying my Twitter commentary, that will not be available. I will be, unfortunately, on the clock at work during the afternoon. So I'll be watching this fight this later on, probably via Fight Pass or ESPN Plus. But anyways, let's talk about things here. But before I do that, I am going to quickly do the usual betting spiel. I'm going to talk about betting. I'm going to talk about what I'm betting on. I'm going to talk about the betting odds. I'm going to talk about information that you are welcome to and can use to inform your betting habits when it comes to this card. That being said, and I feel like this cannot be overstated, MMA is a far too chaotic form of entertainment and sport to look at it as a way of making a living betting on. And additionally, on top of that, that you just should not be betting massive amounts of money. Like it's not what you should be doing. There should be a little bit of extra slice, a little bit of an extra side dish for you on these fight cards. And you know what? A chance to buy yourself a little bauble off of your betting winnings. For example, the desk that I am sitting at right now, that was a purchase based on betting. But I am not looking to get a new house, quit my job, anything about that when it comes to mixed martial arts betting, because it just won't happen. It just will not happen. This is a fundamentally unpredictable activity, and you should not look at it as anything other than that. So let's get into this. Leon Edwards, Sean Brady, main event. Let's go. Betting odds here. Leon Edwards is the underdog, plus 128 to plus 140. Sean Brady, minus 159 to minus 175. I am betting on Edwards because I think there is a thought here that Sean Brady is a little bit too much Bilal Muhammad. Now, what I mean by that is I would be completely unsurprised if Sean Brady goes out there and does the same thing that Bilal Muhammad did to Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is a pathological, limited fighter. What I mean by that is he's a 6'2", 74-inch athletic dude at 170 and should basically be unbeatable. Like, I do mean this. If you were to design the perfect on-paper skill set and physicality for a dominant UFC welterweight, it would be Leon Edwards. But mentally speaking, it just seems like he doesn't really actually like the fight. When things are difficult, when things are forced upon him, when things are messy, when things are at medium range, like that's the particular issue I think he has, is that he's very uncomfortable with a mid-range boxing game. Things come apart for him. And Bilal Muhammad was able to constantly put him in that position. Was able to get in his face, put the pressure on him, be like, no, we are fighting in this boxing range. That is what we're doing. Or we're fighting even closer, and I'm going to put you up against the wall, and I'm going to wrestle you. And Sean Brady has that style. I'm not going to deny that. He has the capabilities. And I mean, hell, Colby Covington had some success when he was able to just go in later rounds of the fight with Leon Edwards to get that job done, to like have that kind of success, to have that kind of game work. It is a well-documented pathway to victory. But what I think people miss about it with Bilal Muhammad is that Bilal has a lot more ancillary skills that allow for him to implement that game plan. Like, he was able to take the Leon Edwards sidestep disengagement in the boxing sections and be like, no. I'm still here. I'm still on you. And I'm going to be here for 5 rounds. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to essentially do the 170 version of Merab Dvalishvili, where, like, yes, it seems really, really simple. It's a wrestling and pressure game, but it is implemented in a manner of intensity and unrelentingness that not everybody can necessarily do. And I'm not sure Sean Brady can do it, because Sean Brady is a fighter who, in various fights of his, even those that he wins, starts to fall off in terms of pace and intensity as the fight goes on. If you want a good example of this, you can go all the way back to his UFC debut with Court McGee, where, again, a fighter that could not physically compete with him and was vulnerable to his style of fight And he did win, obviously. I'm talking about a win here. But it was a fight that was competitive at phases and towards the end because Brady wasn't able to keep implementing his own game on him. And this has also happened with the Gilbert Burns fight, which he also won. This has happened with the Michael Chiesa fight to a certain degree on the feed even, which is another fight he won. And it was something that he was unable to in any way, shape, or form due to Bilal Muhammad, obviously in his only loss. So that is the problem for Sean Brady, is that it is not just a simple matter of wrestling Leon Edwards. It is not simply about pressuring Leon Edwards. It's pressuring him constantly, not giving him any resets, punishing the bad resets that he takes, and utilizing an actually pretty competent boxing game in a way that we don't really think about it, but in a way of footwork. And I don't think that Brady actually does that. I think that Brady's going to have some absolute undeniable success, because I think as long as you push Leon Edwards, there is success to be had. Like I said, in the later stages of his fight with Colby Covington was able to do that. So I have no doubt that some of this fight is going to look like Bilal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards. Some of it. I just think that Leon will have escape valves that he did not have against Bilal. I think hopefully also that his team has been working on this and has been basically on loop in the gym, been saying, do not let him bully you, son. And that would actually have a role in preparing him for this fight, that he is going to be facing that. Now, the only problem with that, of course, is that this was supposed to be Jack Della Maddalena. That's a very, very different fight. And as a result, maybe he's not as prepared as you would like him to be for essentially Bilal 2 in the form of Sean Brady. But I'm trying to be positive here. I'm trying to think that this is going to be Leon Edwards kind of like finding something in himself. Again, not going to be surprised if Sean Brady goes out there and just does what Bilal did, which is back Edwards up to the cage, repetitively, work takedowns when possible, make him uncomfortable, make him have the type of fight that he doesn't want to have, because Leon Edwards is fundamentally, in his mind, a sniper, and that's the only kind of fight that he's actually all that happy with. Just at the same time, don't think that there's the mental cardio capacity in Sean Brady to be that intense for that long. And there's also, I never really thought I'd say this, but like, can we appreciate the Bilal Muhammad technical striking elements that Sean Brady just in no way actually has? That's the other thing, is he's, I think, more vulnerable than Bilal to just getting kind of lit up in sequences here. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm picking Leon by decision. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually finished Sean Brady. Again, I would not be surprised if Brady, for 25 minutes, just reenacts the Bilal Muhammad fight with a little bit less, like, refinement, probably. A little more blunt, a little more Hulk smash, I guess, in a nutshell, rather than, I don't know, like a Superman. Nah, Superman's a bad example of this. I don't have a comic book reference to cover this. I don't. But a cruder version of what Bilal Muhammad did. It is on the table. It is there. I'm just hoping that having lost to Bilal Muhammad and having had the moments of lacklusterness that he had against Colby Covington, that this is a focus of Leon's team. And as a result, we are going to see the fruits of at least some kind of development against it. And I am taking it. So there you go. Also, I think and I'm only betting on it because Leon's the underdog. If Brady was the underdog, I'd be taking him. Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Ulberg. Now, this is a father time fight because we have Jan Blachowicz here. He's 42 years old. Jan is a very good fighter in a technical sense and an adaptability sense, and like I appreciate him. I'm a big fan, even though I don't really like the whole Polish power gimmick, just because it's just a little bit corny and silly. But realistically, he is a guy that goes out there. he's not a cheat code athletic fighter. Like, it's not that he's a bad athlete or anything, but he's not a cheat code athletic fighter like a John Jones, or frankly a lot of this 205 division. Like Jamal Hill comes to mind when I'm talking about this, Yuri Prohaska, Alexander Rakic as well. They come out there and it's like their success is based on basically the innate God-given talent that they have physically. And Jan is not that. He punishes, he's considered, he's measured, he's game planned, he's designed ways to punish things that people want to do to him, specifically kicks. And he works his game. And he's also beaten City Kickboxing before, of course, with the Israel Adesanya fight. So the question here is, at 42 years old, does he still have it in that to do him due to a prime Carlos Ulberg, who's a quite good athlete, but also is considered in actually putting together like a game that if he had been a little bit younger when he started with City Kickboxing, I would be really, really hopeful would be something very, very new. Like, can you imagine like a Carlos Ulberg type with like Israel Adesanya's like positive attributes as a fighter? That would be phenomenal. So I am basically just going with Ulberg because of that age thing. Like, it's 42 years old. It was the thing is, like Jack Slack said on Twitter the other day, and I interacted with a couple people on it. It was if Jan Blachowicz wins this fight, it is a sign that this division is just not getting any better. Because you can't have guys in their 40s winning fights against the, let's be honest, best of the upcoming crop, which is what Ulberg is, and have the division making progress, be headed towards a better place, be heading towards a elevated place. So I maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just like hoping for the future here that 205 is the 205 of 3 years from now is better than the 205 today. Like that is my hope. And it's not one that I necessarily have a great deal of hope for, because we did just see Dayar Ngozi in the last fight lose to Brenson Hibero, who is definitively not part of that like better future. So there are things that I'm not super confident in, if I'm being completely honest, that we're going to be stuck with this kind of division as it is. But I am going to pick Ulberg here too, because of the City Kickboxing roots and because he's improving to become better. He's also something that happens here that I'd like to compare with the Rakic fight is that Jan Blachowicz versus Rakic was a fight with a guy who had to have kicking success in order to beat him, and he punished it. I don't think Ulberg is as reliant on a kicking outside game as Rakic is. I think he's willing to mix it up in the pocket in the medium range game with Jan Blachowicz, which is dangerous because Jan has good timing, feeling. He has good power. I made fun of the Polish power thing, but like he hits hard. He is a 205er. There is no such thing as a safe pocket exchange with anyone in this division. But that he can hopefully get some of the job done there, as well as on the outside with the hands, as well as doing a little bit of kicking, even if it is Jan's like major strength. And I just don't see either guy having like prolonged grappling success. Like, we know Jan can grapple a little bit, and obviously that was kind of the narrative off of the Israel Adesanya fight, is that he defeated Israel Adesanya and vis-a-vis City Kickboxing by being bigger and being able to bring a wrestling game to the table, which doesn't tell the whole story, but it is part of that story. It's like, does he necessarily do that to somebody like Carlos Ulberg? Because outside of that fight with Izzy, who is a middleweight, let's be honest, there's not really a particularly dominant wrestling performance that Jan Blachowicz has. Like, if looking at his UFC stats here, there's only one other fight in the UFC that he's had where he had multiple takedowns. And not surprisingly, it was against Jared Cannonier, another 185er masquerading as a 205er, who, is really strong and everything, but like isn't even a particularly strong wrestler. So, yeah, I think we should see a more or less kickboxing affair here. I don't think the exploits that he had against Israel Adesanya are available, and I do think that the City Kickboxing guys should have some ideas for how to beat a 42-year-old Jan Blachowicz. So I am going with Ulberg by decision. The only reason I'm not picking a stoppage, obviously, is that realistically, if you look at Olberg, as much as I think he has the potential to be a stoppage guy, he's not that massive of a hitter. The guys he's been beating are guys who are known for their history of defensive and or durability issues. And Jan doesn't have that. He's only been knocked out by Diego Santos his entire UFC run. And he's been here for, quite a while. So I say this goes the distance, and there you go. Also, Olberg went the distance with Volkan Oezdemir in a very, very similar fight, which was a close fight. But I'm hoping that he's a little bit better and that they've got a little bit something like fine-tuned for dealing with Jan Blachowicz. Anyways, betting odds-wise, Jan was a plus 210, is a plus 210 underdog. The favorite at minus 225 to minus 310 is Olberg. I would consider betting at that in the 200 range, but like in the 300 range, no, I would probably lose interest at that point. But I don't know. I might put a small bet on Blachowicz just because he could easily prevail. I mean, again, Olberg's best win is a fairly competitive fight against Volkan Oezdemir. Kevin Holland versus Gunnar Nelson. Nelson is the favorite, minus 120 to minus 130. Holland's plus 100 to plus. I've got plus 100 to plus 100 here, which obviously is wrong. There's probably like plus 110 or something like that. But yeah, I'm picking Nelson. The only concern I have here is he's coming off a 2-year layoff, but like he does grapple really, really competently, and he does strike fairly competently. And he should be able to just kind of get in the clinch and probably get Holland down, because Holland will grapple with anybody, even when he realistically shouldn't. And he's not a serious fighter. He's not worked on his takedown defense or denying entries or anything like that. And yeah, I'm going to pick him over anyone with a submission game. And Gunnar Nelson by sub. That's the pick. That's what I'm rolling with. And I'm probably going to stay away from betting on it because, I don't really feel like betting on a guy who's coming off a 2-year layoff. But yeah, it's a meme fight, but like, you know what? It's actually not a bad fight put together. I kind of wonder if it's done by accident. This card in general is fairly well match made. And then we have Molly McCann versus Alexia Thainara. And Molly McCann fights are often more about her opponent than herself. Like, I think by now we know what Molly McCann is. She's a reasonably scrappy subpar athlete for the weight class. She's got a little bit of pop in her hands, and she's got a decently well-rounded game. She has fallen into some submissions, but it's by like pretty good fighters. Like losing by submission to Erin Blanchfield is not a problem. Losing by submission to Julia Stoliarenko is like, it's more of a problem, but you're not going to lose any other way to Julia Stoliarenko. That's like literally what she does. And then aside from that, it's like a decision back to Laura Fritzen / Laura Procopio. I forget which is her current name and which is her former name. I think it's Fritzen now, and it was Procopio at the time. And then, losing to Tyler Santos. Like, it's not a problem. So the question is always like, do you have the prerequisite physical ability to be someone who competes in MMA at a UFC level? Do you have the ability to have a deep game and to implement it on Molly McCann? And if these two things are true, you generally beat her. If one of these things is true, you'll generally lose. Oh, well, 50-50, I guess. If neither are true, you absolutely will not beat her. And I think both are true in this case. Thainara does seem to be actually a pretty good physical specimen. She does have a pretty good takedown game for someone who, as far as I know, I don't think has any kind of like wrestling background or even like judo background. I think she's like a pure jiu-jitsu background. And it is nice, I guess is what I'm saying, to see that she can go out there and just basically plant people on the ground. Even people who have like a reasonably decent skill set for that. She's got the physicality, like I said, the strength, the explosiveness, and her striking is bad. I will say that. It is good in single strike exchanges, I guess is the word I'm looking for. When she just goes out there and gets to throw like a low kick, that looks pretty good actually. When she just has to throw a straight punch, that looks fine. But when she gets into combinations, she gets a bit windmilly, and her kicks end up being very naked without anything really defensively considered about them. But she hasn't been knocked out, which means that she is pretty durable. Molly can hit hard. And if she were to, for example, get into a spinning battle with Molly, because Molly does like to theoretically do a little spinning back fist, and Thainara likes to spin way more than is healthy because it is ugly form. But that could get her into trouble. But I just foresee her being able to kind of crash into Molly over and over and over and over again, get the takedown, get this fight to the ground, be on top, get the control in, and out-athlete Molly McCann. So there you go. I think the idea was to get Molly a win here because they originally had her matched up against Estela Nunes, but they brought in Alexa Thainara, who I think is a much better fighter than Estela Nunes, who I just don't think was very good. And I am expecting her to get the job done here. And that's not a hot take because Thainara is a minus 188 to minus 205 favorite. Molly coming back at plus 150 to plus 170. You could make an underdog bet on Molly Meatball McCann there. I wouldn't see the purpose of betting on the favorite here. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that's even too wide of an odds line. It's just Thainara is pretty unproven. Like, as is the case with almost every debuting female in the UFC, there's just a lack of like UFC proven level talent that they would have fought. And in her case, there is somebody, but it's Bruna Brazil, who she lost to. So there is that to consider. So she does have some defensive weaknesses as a striker. She does have some submission losses. Or one submission loss. So in theory, there could be some ways for Meatball Molly to do some things here. But it just does feel like she should have the right game plan and the right physical tools to put Molly in the corner, so to speak. Jordan Vucenic versus Chris Duncan. Vucenic is a prohibitive favorite at minus 500 to minus 480, and Duncan plus 290 to plus 360. I will be picking Vucenic, though, and the answer is actually pretty simple here. I like Chris Duncan, but I think he has a very hard ceiling because he's just not that kind of athlete at 155. He is scrappy. He will push a pace because he has to. And he's a relatively creative, relatively dangerous striker, has some submissions, has some wrestling capability. He's fun. He's a very, very fun fighter, and I wish him all the best. But anytime he's up against somebody who I think has a really structured game and is more athletic than him, which is almost going to be everybody, even the people he's beaten are better athletes than him, I just think that he'll probably get crushed. He's a guy who has given up submissions before, particularly the rear naked choke. Vucenic has a good back take game, good rear naked choke game as well. He is a competent striker. I would say Duncan is a more technically clean striker, but like at the same time, Vucenic has probably a little bit more power. Like he does hit legitimately hard. Seems to be able to take a pretty hard punch as well. So I just see Vucenic putting the pressure on him, getting enough done on the feet that obviously Duncan doesn't have that as a safe zone, and getting takedowns, probably getting to the back at some point and getting the rear naked choke. So that is my call. Then we move on to Nathaniel Wood versus Morgan Charrier. I am picking the underdog Nathaniel Wood here. Wood is a plus 120 to plus 135 favorite or underdog, and it's minus 154 to minus 165 for Morgan Charrier. I want to be clear here. Morgan Charrier has all the tools to be a really, really good fighter, but you might guess this from the fact that he is 20-10. He has what seems to be just a flaw that I don't trust him to win if against somebody he's not going to finish. And what I mean by this is that Morgan Charrier is a hard hitter with a good frame, good athletic capability, good technical kickboxing, very, very good technical striker, very slick. But there are points in the fight where he just kind of stops. He just kind of admires his work a little bit. He doesn't put on the pace that sometimes is needed. And there's a reason why he's only ever won 2 decisions, and neither were unanimous. And there's a reason why he has 10 losses in a career that has only 1 loss in the UFC. It is, and admittedly this is to very good fighters, it is the fact that he will just not be fighting hard for the entire fight. Like, I feel like at the end of this fight, Morgan Charrier, who is a better size fighter for the division, is going to have 3, 4, 5 moments of like really slickness and really cool things that I'm like, hey, that was really neat. I'm going to be thinking about that. I'm going to remember that. That's going to be on a highlight reel. And Wood's going to have none of that. But I'm going to also be like, Wood fought for 15 minutes. Went out there and went to war for 15 minutes. And Charrier was only good for 9 minutes of that. And he wins just because, again, he's durable and defensively he's sound enough to not get finished by Charrier. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Wood. I'm probably going to bet pretty big on it with him getting underdog odds. Jai Herbert versus Chris Padilla is a more or less even money fight. Minus 105 to minus 125 on Herbert, plus 100 to minus 115 on Padilla. And I don't know. So Jai Herbert is a hard-hitting guy who is a pretty decent striker with a reasonably okay wrestling and grappling game. And Padilla is a really, really solid technical wrestler, but doesn't have a game that gets there very well. And his striking is, I don't want to say bad because it's effective, but it is janky. It is not comfortable to be reliant on, essentially. And he's also very, very hittable. And Herbert is a guy who literally hurt Ilia Topuria. So if you need to know anything more, this dude is, in spite of a lack of actual like UFC success, this guy is very dangerous. Like, don't let the 3-4-1 record fool you. he can in fact be quite violent and effective. I'm gonna pick him. To be here. I'm just gonna pick Padilla to kind of probably face check some things, and I don't know. I can't find my way into like actually trusting Padilla. I think is the issue. He's a guy I'm probably gonna be picking against like kind of constantly, and as a result, I do have to go with Jai Herbert, but probably by TKO here. Loney Kavanaugh or Loney Kavanaugh versus Felipe Dos Santos. Kavanaugh is my pick here, but like there is a loss to somebody like Dos Santos coming in his future because he doesn't work at a pace that is comfortable for flyweight. The issue is that like it's flyweight. You can't long term get the best out of your game by being a kind of flashy, considered striker, and that is what Kavanaugh is. So Dos Santos is going to fight at the standard flyweight insane pace. He's going to go out there. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to get in his face. He's going to try and make things ugly a little bit and try to pace him. And Kavanaugh should have plenty of opportunities to absolutely blast him in the face as a result of this. But he also, I don't know. There's just like at the end of the day, it's you want to fight at flyweight by landing 51 strikes, and that is, I'm nervous about that. Without a knockdown and without like a really aggressive grappling game of any kind. Like you did that as a striker. So I am going with Kavanaugh. He is the favorite, minus 290 to minus 333. I get it. Dos Santos is plus 230 to plus 260. I'm just saying that there is a fight that looks a lot like this one in Kavanaugh's future that he is going to lose. And it's hopefully it'll be a wake-up call for him and allow him to just step it up a bit. Just needs to turn that intensity knob up a couple of notches, and he's going to be really, 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 really good. Marcin Tybura versus Mick Parkin. Tybura is the underdog, so I'm taking him here. He's plus 106 to minus 105. Parkin's minus 120 to minus 132. Tybura is a reasonably tough bastard who grapples well. Parkin, I think, is way too willing to actually get into a wrestling match that he doesn't necessarily have a great way of winning, and he doesn't have the kind of power that we're used to associating with actually finishing Tybura. So Tybura by decision. I'm not, I prefer Parkin winning. He's an under 30-year-old heavyweight, and like it would be heading for good directions. It's just, I don't know. His fights in hindsight, and even during, in the case of the Cal Machado fight, have just they've kind of failed to impress me. So going with Tybura. Andre Pulaev versus Christian Leroy Duncan, CLD. I am going to go with CLD here because Pulaev is not that good. Pulaev is a guy who got away with a lot on the regional scene by being 6'4" with a 78.5-inch reach and being fairly violent and fairly exciting. Like I'm not saying he's a bad addition. He's going to be fun while he's here. I just think that there's a lot of holes in his game. There's a lot of holes in the pocket for him. There's a lot of holes in the clinch for him, even though his Contender Series fight did look better in that regard. And Christian Leroy Duncan can actually match him for reach. His reach is 79 inches. He is pretty athletic. He is actually very athletic. I shouldn't say pretty athletic. I should draw like a differential here that he is very athletic. And he can go out there and he can put a beating on somebody. And he did surprisingly better against Hobokop than I was expecting. So CLD by decision or a TKO. He is a prohibitive favorite, though, at minus 549 to minus 670. And Pulev is coming back at plus 400 to plus 480. And then these last three fights are going to be really, really quick here. I'm taking the underdog Puja Tomar plus 135 to plus 150 over the Shanna Bannon minus 168 5 to minus 186. The reason is this is basically Bannon's fight with Alice Ardelin again, where Bannon is the better technical fighter. Don't get me wrong, the better school fighter, the better coached fighter. The fighter I actually would like to see win fights, but she has no physical edges in this game. And Tomar is an aggressive, relatively decently paced, like reasonably good athlete. She's not great, really at all. I don't expect to see either of these women in the division in a year, honestly. 2 years, maybe tops. But yeah, there's just not enough. There's just not enough actual like potency in Bannon's game. And I'm going to go with Tomar by decision. Callan Loughran versus Nathan Fletcher. Fletcher is the favorite, minus 112 to minus 125. I'm nervous about doing any betting on that, but Callan Loughran, who's coming in at plus 102 to minus 108, is bad. He developed a pure forward-moving aggressive style, basically Sean Brady, but at bantamweight and not athletic enough, and like really bad footwork, really not good footwork. And we saw Jake Hadley be able to kind of like work circles around him and pick up the victory. And like, there's nothing special about Jake Hadley on the feet that realistically should have let that happen. And it just shot any confidence I have in Loughran out the door. So Fletcher by decision, just by having some basic footwork ideas and like some basic ideas of how to strike. Like I don't have high hopes for Fletcher either, but Fletcher seems like a structured enough fighter to get this done. So there you go. And then moving on further on down here, we go down to the opener, which is Guram Kutateladze versus Cowie Fernandez. What is this doing so far down? I mean, like, at the very least, Guram Kutateladze, who, keep in mind, is I think is coming off a win over Jordan Vucenic, who's higher in the card, should be a lot higher up. And I don't really know why he's not. Is there a fight in between there that I'm not thinking of? Yeah, no. He beat Jordan. He beat Jordan Vucenic. He beat Mateusz Gamrot. He did lose to Damir Ismagulov and Els Brenner, but like those are really good fights. I don't get it. I don't get it. Anyways, Cowie Fernandez is a decent athlete, fun, flashy striker and everything. But the dude is not very structured, and I think anytime he runs into a good athlete like Guram Kutateladze with a reasonably structured game, he is just going to lose. And that's really all I got to say on that fight. Kutateladze minus 425 to minus 460. I wouldn't bet on that just because once you're at minus 400, I am not having any interest. Cowie Fernandez plus 320 to plus 340. Wouldn't bet on that either. I got a lot of faith in Kutateladze here. So that's the card. It's a pretty good one. It's going to... Honestly, the only fight that I'm kind of dreading is possibly the heavyweights with Tybura and Parkin. But okay. Pusha Tomar versus Shauna Bannon. I'm dreading that. But we'll see. Anyways, down below, social medias and video gaming stuff if you want to get more of me. And I will see you after the fights, probably on Sunday.